Good morning and welcome to a beautiful sunny day here in the East Bay of San Francisco. It's a gorgeous Friday and I'm lucky to have one of my dear friends, Sherry Prindle, with us on this episode of Leadership Stars. As you remember, Leadership Stars is designed for my wonderful network marketing, multi-level marketing, and direct sales women who are stepping into leadership who are already in leadership and want to know more about how to demonstrate their leadership, how to be stronger in it, and how to really have those skills that will help them to retain at least 20% more of their working representatives. Wouldn't you just love to do that and get a bit off that hamster wheel of recruitment that we find ourselves on a regular basis? So Sherry, let's start with you. Tell my audience just a little bit about you, where you come from, the kind of work that you do, why you're passionate about what you do. Because I know you're sort of all over the place. You are a fabulous teacher and trainer. You're a fantastic speaker. You're a coach extraordinaire, and you love to travel, and you actually write blogs about your travel as well.
Yeah, so the blog is Eat, Drink, and Be Sherry, so you can just make what you want out of that. Yeah. But I've been a 17-year veteran trainer, so I go into corporations and teach training seminars and do a lot of curriculum development. But about 10 years ago, I realized that training is nice. It feeds your brain, it gives you ideas, but knowing better and doing better are two completely different things. Right. And I was really hoping that the people who took my training would actually follow through and take some actions and apply the training, right? So then I learned about this field of coaching. Yeah, and coaching is about, breaking it down into specific daily actions and being held accountable. So I thought that's exactly what I want. It's the perfect supplement to my training.
Yeah.
So I loved coaching so much that I became a master coacher, began training other coaches, and eventually started my own life coach and executive coach certification training school, the Professional Coach Academy.
Wow, that's impressive. So out of curiosity, what's the difference between a life coach and an executive coach?
I always say that life and executive coaches do the same thing. So basically what coaches do is this. They help people, one, figure out exactly what it is that they want and need to do. Two, to break what they want to do down into specific action steps. Three, to maybe clear away some barriers that have been keeping them from taking action. And four, to hold them accountable. The difference is a life coach will do that with an individual. An executive coach does that with an executive, and a business coach does that with an entrepreneur.
Ooh, how fascinating. Yeah. And, for a long time when I was first in corporate, we used to say that people who were out there coaching were folks who were without a job. So it sounds like you've put together a certification program so that there is validity to what they're doing, as opposed to I just hung out my shingle because I had nothing else to do.
It's legal to hang out your shingle because you have nothing else to do. There's no government mandate that says you have to be certified as a coach. It's a self-regulated industry. And I think you might be surprised at how many industries are self-regulated that. Like hypnotherapy is a self-regulated industry, ESL certification, teaching English as a second language. There are hundreds of self-regulated industries. Right. I'm glad coaching is self-regulated because the minute you have all these regulations, people start jumping through hoops. It becomes bureaucratic, and I think it waters it down. Now, are there really horrible coaches out there? Absolutely. But we're a capitalist economy. Really horrible coaches don't get clients, and they just get taken out of the marketplace by just being plain bad. Yeah. So I think it's okay. Go out, let's let the coaches do what they do. And most coaches will give like a free session, a strategy session. And if you do a strategy session with a coach and it's horrible, no matter how much you feel guilty, like, oh no, they've just given me, I've spent all this time with them, maybe I should buy it. Don't buy it. 10, 20 strategy sessions until you find a coach that you're like, wow. And they say, here's how you know that it was good. When I was with that person, I felt like this coach drew out of me things that I never realized about myself and my life. I now have clarity. I understand what I really need to do. I have motivation. That's how you know, ooh, I've hit on something here.
Right. Okay. And you helped also define the difference between a coach and a counselor and a consultant and all of that too.
So there's counseling and therapy, and coaches have no right to do any kind of counseling and therapy. We are not licensed for that. Right. There's a lot of education in that. Yeah. So what coaches will never do is diagnose, like, here's what's wrong with you. A coach will never say, here's what you need. That's what counselors and therapists do. And counselors and therapists often look into the past and study the childhood. And so in coaching, one of the biggest differences is that coaching starts now. So we basically say all the past is great, it's important, and it's what brought you here where you are now, what you find yourself here now, where do you want to go? So that's a big difference, is that coaching is starting now and into the future. And now the difference between coaching and other modalities like consulting and mentoring and training and teaching is that coaching is not so much about knowledge or about advice or about doing what I say you should do. Coaching is about drawing things out of the client. Right. So whereas a consultant will say, here's my 12-step process, follow this. Right. A mentor will say, here, I'm successful, follow me, and you'll be successful too. A teacher or trainer will say, here's this information, let me impart that to you. Whereas a coach will really help you figure out. So a coach is a master of questions, of clearing blocks and barriers and helping you uncover. So there's a piece, and I was just actually doing like you take that little brush, and you uncover the artifact, right? Yeah. So with a coach, what you'll find is the coach will not answer the question, what should I do?
Okay, so what you are really is someone who's curious. So you're curious about what's their vision, what inspires them, what motivates them, what are their goals, where are they going, what kind of team do they have, where are they finding that there are roadblocks to what they're doing, but you're really curious, so you're always asking questions as a coach.
So and I'm almost hearing it being kind of like people are busy searching outside themselves for the answers, and coaches help them find the answers inside. And we believe that somewhere deep down inside, most people have some sense of what they really want and need to do and what they have available, but they've not been trained by society to look inward to get those answers.
Yeah. Ooh. So, as you said, you do executive and business coaching, and you work with the behavioral styles as well. So how do you work with different behavioral styles so that you're actually getting the end result that you're looking for, and the person that you're coaching feels like you got them?
Exactly. So behavioral styles, personality styles, communication styles, they have all different names. Most of you have gone through one, whether it was a really fancy thing like a Myers-Briggs written test, or whether it was some kind of a fun thing you did with colors and animals. Do you remember what your animal is? A lion?
I think so.
I think maybe you're a lion.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I'm an otter. So so here we are. And there you go. As lions, as coaches, what we really need is to develop rapport and trust with our clients, because they really need to open up and for us to draw this out of them. So the real secret to building rapport and trust is this, and I have this analogy that I'd like to share. Okay. And I learned it from a man named Dr. Tom Miller, who did an audio program called Self-Discipline and Emotional Control, based on a book that he did called The Unfair Advantage. And the analogy goes like this. So your brain has these two parts, conscious and unconscious. And where do you suppose you spend the majority of your waking hours, conscious or unconscious?
Unconscious.
85 to 90% of the time, we're unconscious. Congratulations.
Yay.
That means that you're awake, but you're not having to think through step by step what you're doing. And what's a great example of something you do unconsciously?
Brushing your teeth.
All that morning routine, right?
Everything that you do that's a routine, you don't think about. Well, even internally, you've got things like your heartbeats. You don't think about that. And if you had to think about how many times you breathe and how many times your heart beats, you wouldn't think about anything else. So the unconscious does have a really strong role, but not when it gets in your way, right?
Right. And I'm just going to make sure that you understand we can do much more complicated things even than that unconsciously. Like driving. Think about how complicated driving is, but you don't have to think about how much gas you're giving it or how you're turning the wheel.
Well, and it's also very funny when if you go the same route every day and you look up and you go, gee, when did they build that 13-story building? And you've been going by it every day, but you're unconscious. You're not even thinking about it.
So how much of your workday, even as an entrepreneur, do you find yourself flipping it on autopilot and large chunks of the day disappeared? And when you say, wow, today went by fast, it's because you weren't there. So when Linda asks, how about when it gets in your way? I fully agree. I think the fact that you're unconscious most of the time is mostly a great thing. It lets you work hard all day without being exhausted. It lets you multitask. It's mastery. When you've mastered something, you don't have to think about it. Then you can move over and master something else. It's how we grow. It's all good until you want to change something that's already been programmed in, and then it's super difficult. It's a lot easier. I mean, if you read up on this, it's a lot easier to actually learn something brand new from scratch than to change how you do something that you already do.
Right.
So when we look at that whole conscious and unconscious, here's the analogy. Dr. Tom Miller calls the unconscious mind the horse and the conscious mind the rider. So have you been on a trail ride?
Yeah.
And, oh, you're a horse person.
I'm a horse person.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, you'll love this then. So you get on your horse and it follows the horse in front of it. Ever try to get your horse to do anything interesting?
Oh,
like
yes.
speed up past the horse in front of it? What happens?
He doesn't do it.
Nothing.
I mean, he balks. I've actually had one throw me off his back.
Exactly. And at the very least, he just continues to follow the horse in front of him. So if you really wanted the horse to move on a different path, you could force it, but you'd have to keep forcing the horse and keep forcing the horse, because if you tried to relax a little bit, what would the horse tend to do?
He'd go right back in line.
Aren't our horses like that? How many times have you said, I'm going to start getting up earlier. I'm going to clean this and organize this so that it never gets messed up again. I'm never going to do that again. The horse takes back over. Right. So you go to these great, what do they call those? The symposia for the network marketing company, right?
Yeah, it's their conference.
Big motivational stuff. And you're like, yeah, go. Yeah. And you come back and very little happens. Sometimes we do worse after those because we have all these new ideas and there's all this change happening at once, and it kind of makes us shut down, right? Or we say you sign on somebody in your downline and they're all like, yeah, I'm ready, I'm gung-ho. But the minute they're away from you and back in their life, nothing happens but. So you just want you to see the manifestation of that every day, right? So it's one thing to know better. Oh, have we heard this before? It's one thing to know better and another thing to do better. And the problem is that going from knowing better to doing better means that you can't just train your rider by watching awesome videos that Linda Patten puts on, but you also have to train your horse. And the only way to train your horse is how?
Is to
what do you think?
Bring it up to the conscious so that you can begin to make changes on it. So you can look at it, you can analyze it, and then make changes. And you also have to look at how you feel, because feelings fuel your thoughts. And that's one of the things I always learned was that you can try, you don't like the results, so you want to change the actions, but you can't. So you change the action and nothing happens because you haven't changed the thoughts or the feelings that generate those actions. So you have to change those two first. So
let me take what Linda just said. Certainly you have to first become conscious, because how are you going to remind yourself to do it the new way if you're not conscious, right? But you can't stay conscious. Like being conscious takes up a lot of energy, a lot of adrenaline. So if you kind of look at the fact that you start out like, basically first you need to know what to do, then you need to know how to do it, then you need to get to where you're doing it skillfully, and finally you need to get to where you're doing it automatically. And to get to that last level, that is just practice and repetition. Any skill you have, you thought about it, you got yourself motivated, you cleared the barriers, all the things Linda said, but then eventually you just had to do it enough that finally the horse ate the new learning and it became the new way of doing things. So it's not enough to know better. Are you out there as a leader kind of doing the practice and repetition after, so you turn knowing better into doing better? Are you working with your downline and actually helping them build the skill, build the comfort level with the new way of living?
Yeah, so it's taking folks from being consciously incompetent and turning them first into conscious competence, where they know what they're doing, but they have to think about it as they do it, and then finally become unconsciously competent, where you don't have to think about it and it becomes a habit.
So as a leader, you cannot sustain success on the level of conscious competence. You can be competent all you want to, but you can't maintain the consciousness long enough to be consistently competent. It's about training the horse and having the horse eat the new knowledge to become unconsciously competent. And then eventually, if you want to really be a leader, there's one level above that that's called meta knowledge, and that's where you look back at your unconscious competence, you dissect it, and then you're able to replicate and train others in that, which is what Linda does.
Which is just wonderful. So with a leader, one of the steps is to be a change agent. And so this is really critical to the network marketing leader, to take those new things. I mean, every month something's changing. You're getting a new promotion, on your products, or there's a new product coming out. You've got new people on your team, and all of that takes that kind of training where you actually get them to think about it again. What's really great is if you can actually have a training session without any participants. So in other words, you don't have any prospective members in the audience, and you just have your team practice. You have them looking at, well, what's the new presentation that we're doing? Tell me about the new product, so that they get more comfortable, because of their style, they may not be comfortable with change.
So the horse gets in the way, and I realize now to kind of connect this back,
bring it all back together,
to like the personality styles and that. So the horse, actually, the unconscious part of your mind is in charge of your survival mechanism, but that part of your brain doesn't do critical thinking and learning. That's the conscious mind. Right. So your horse doesn't actually know what's good for you and what's bad for you, what is safe and what is dangerous. All it knows is, hey, you're alive right now, which means nothing you've done so far has killed you. So the easiest way to keep you safe is to keep you the same, and anything different might be dangerous. So recognize whether it is that you're dealing with potential clients or whether you're dealing with your own inner struggles, that what's really happening is the horse basically has said safe is same, different is dangerous. So that's kind of where that huge internal struggle comes. Yeah. And that's also where you find that if the thing you're offering is perfect for the client and the client still resists, it's because they feel like, oh no, it's different, it's dangerous. So the personality styles becomes this. If I mirror your style, then I'm the same. And the horse is like, same is safe. So if I mirror your style, then you're safe. I can trust you. I can put down my barriers and actually listen to your presentation and what you're saying.
Yeah. And that's so critical because you can actually see them. You can see them getting excited, and then they get to a certain place and all of a sudden they shut down. It's like, what did I say? What part of you did I not connect with, such this continues to be something that you're excited about?
Well, basically now we know it's kind of what fear triggered. What fear did I trigger? How did I come? So mostly when they shut down, and do look for that. Yeah. Because when they've shut down, there's no point in arguing with the unconscious. There's no point in talking to the horse, right?
Exactly.
So when they shut down, then you realize what's happened is that they've perceived you as a threat. Something that you said came back as a threat. So there's a principle in neuro-linguistic programming that says resistance is a sign of lack of rapport. Resistance is a sign of lack of rapport. Right. So the minute you get the resistance, what we tend to do is to push further, like, oh, if you could only see this. No, back up and start mirroring and matching them. Get back into rapport where if they're slow paced, you slow down. If they're fast paced, you speed up. If you're like this and they're like this, then lean back like this and start talking to them in their style. Build the rapport back up, and that's the only chance you have of saving the conversation.
Right, and it's even, if their arms are crossed, you cross your arms so that they feel comfortable that you're understanding what's going on with them, and then ask. You can even let me rephrase, or let me see if I understand what you're saying.
Or better yet, ask them, questions. So I think one of the most important things to do is ask questions. Why was it that you thought it might be a good idea to talk with me today? What was it that you thought might be really beneficial about having this in your life?
Right. Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah. Or what did you hear that resonated with you?
Now, wait a minute. She said, what did you hear if that resonated with you? Another thing that you can mirror and match is whether they're visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. So she said, what did you hear that resonated with you? If I'm speaking with a visual person and I said that would be a major disconnect. Right. So then I would have to say, well, what did you see in this product that really gave you a vision of something different for your life? Or if they were kinesthetic, which is feelings, I would say, what was your feeling? What was your feeling about the product? How do you think that would make your life better? Or really kind of being in touch with that as well.
Well, the kinesthetic also has to do with hands-on, working with it. So, do you need to taste it? Do you need to smell it? What do you need to do? Do you need to work with it? Like the oil, if you're doing essential oils, do you want them to, actually get a chance to experience them? Because oftentimes kinesthetic people want that experience, not just seeing it, hearing it, smelling it, tasting it. They really want that experience as well.
And when you can't do that, then just give a description for visual people, give people a sense of it, tell them a story, help them feel it through like a good story. Or
yeah. Because I know my youngest daughter is all about kinesthetic. She had a horrible time in school with visual, reading, hearing. She's great with hearing, but where she really excelled was when she got into baking and pastry arts, and she could develop these phenomenal cakes, and that's where her expertise was. So understanding that can also be really important for you in retaining your working representatives, because if you understand them more, then they feel more attached to you as a leader.
Well, and training them on this, because a lot of your representatives say, I don't need samples. I'm not going to order samples. They're not kinesthetic, so they don't need samples. That doesn't mean that the people they're trying to market to don't need samples.
Yeah. Well, and even the folks who like taste, I want to taste it. I mean, maybe I won't like it. I don't know how many protein drinks that I've gotten, the powders, and I mix them up, and I put berries and everything else in them, and I taste them. I go, ugh, God, it tastes like sawdust. And so that taste can also be very important to people. So understanding really the full dimension of the folks that you're working with, both as active representatives and as wholesale buyers, and potential clients, so that you really give them the experience that they need to work with you. And coaches do the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and coaches also help train the horse, the whole knowing better. Okay, now how do I get myself to do better? Let me have a coach that I'm accountable to.
Okay, so we've danced around a whole bunch of things, but what do you see are the major behaviors or issues that really hold people back from getting what they're looking for? I mean, I hear it all the time in network marketing. They just drop off. We say, get three who get three who get three, and you'll have a team. And you get three, and one of them gets three, and the other two drop off, and you're constantly. So what kinds of behaviors and issues really challenge people around that?
So recognizing that the horse is all about safe, right? So it's all about power. So here's the problem is that when I am dealing with my downline and then someone in my downline excels, then my natural human nature says, ooh, I need to get competitive with them. And then all of a sudden you see them as a threat. Your horse sees them as a threat, and you start doing behaviors towards your downline and you don't realize it. You probably don't realize it. But if I were to talk to your downline and I were to say, how do you feel about communications? They would probably, everyone, no matter how successful you are, they would probably say, I don't have enough communication, because almost everybody everywhere says, I don't have enough communication.
It doesn't matter whether you're in corporate or you're an entrepreneur. It's always, how much do you hear from your boss, or how much do you hear from, and it's like, oh, I never hear from them. So how do they know what the vision is if they, quote, never hear from you?
And usually that is either A, your horse is telling you, I don't want to bug them, or B, your horse is telling you, I don't want to, and again, you're not going to want to own up to this, but just listen to what your horse says. Your horse is telling you, I need to hoard certain types of information to maintain my position and not let everybody know all my deep, dark secrets. And yet we know that the great secret to marketing now is give them all your best stuff.
Exactly.
They're never going to surpass you as long as you're continuing to grow anyway. So the biggest issues I see are power struggles that people don't even realize that they're in. So here I am, and my horse is feeling threatened. And so I have engaged in a power struggle with clients. I'm trying to sell this thing to this person over here, and they start asking me questions, and I start getting defensive about my product. Really? And you don't realize it. You don't even realize, but the horse is looking at everything like, is there anything potentially threatening? Yeah. So the more you understand how your horse operates, the more you kind of step back and you hear your horse chattering in your ear, and you go, oh, you think to yourself, that's just my horse feeling very threatened. Thank you, horse. And you just kind of go like this. It'll be okay. It'll be okay, Daisy. So I mean, I could list the behaviors, but to be honest, almost all of them are power struggle behaviors where your horse feels threatened and then begins to either A, hold back things, withhold things, or B, get defensive, or C, even actively begin to judge sort of the other person and kind of pull back and kind of get withdrawn. It's a lot of that kind of thing. So as much as we think leadership skill is leadership's personal skill.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I also find that sometimes uplines will sabotage. They'll do things like they'll get on a three-way call, and after you've told your upline over and over and over again, please do not share the business with this person. They're not interested in the business. They're interested in getting results with the products. Please do not share the business with them. Don't ask them about how many people do they have on their list. None of that. And so you get on the line, and the first thing the upline goes is, so how many people on your list? Do you have your friends and family on the list? What are you going to call them? It's like, no. What did they say? And it really then hurts your relationship with your client, because the upline feels threatened, and so tries to sabotage you in phone calls. And that's not something we want to work together. We want, again, when the tide rises, all ships rise. Exactly. So help the people who are downlines, and everything successful, the business as a whole is going to be, rather than seeing it as a threat. But yes, you're right. Your horse sees it as it's a threat to my safety. I mean, if I allow you to become successful, then I lose money, and that's not a good thing. Yeah.
So in order to be successful, in order to be a good leader, just understanding that it's not all conscious, that what you know isn't what you do, that there's a real inconsistency there, and just being aware. I hope that today, just distinguishing that there's this part of your brain, the horse, can help you not be then the victim of the way the horse thinks, but it will allow you to then be the writer and pay attention to the horse and keep the horse calm and in check.
Yes, and happy. Yes. Okay. So, Sherry, I know that you have a free offer for our audience. Would you like to tell us just a little bit about that?
You know, I created this just for you. And let me see what I called it here. I called it the Behavior Change Toolkit. And so there's an article I wrote about the horse and rider that's just Behavior Change 101. But in addition to that, I've actually given you a couple of neat exercises. I have an exercise on self-coaching. And so that when you're in a place where you're like, my know better and my do better, there's a gap between my know better and my do better. It's actually a self-coaching that you can take yourself through to help go through and change your horse. And there are a couple of other neat things in that. So if this is kind of a new concept for you, then this will really be helpful to you.
That sounds fabulous. So tell them how they get it.
Absolutely. So I'm going to ask you to go to this web address. It's livingroomlifecoach.com, just all one word, Living Room Life Coach. Like that's what we're kind of doing now, is kind of coaching you from our living room, right?
Absolutely.
So livingroomlifecoach.com/change. So livingroomlifecoach.com/change. I'm Sherry Prindle, and the page gives you an opportunity to give me your email address and send that to you.
Yeah, and Sherry is such a fantastic coach. I love having her here with me today, and every time I get a chance to sit down with her, there's always something new and fabulous that I learn about coaching and about behavior and the unconscious and travel. We didn't get a chance to talk about that today. And I also have a free gift for you all, as you know. I created the program, The Art of Herding Cats, Leading Teams of Leaders, and that's why I wear my panther to remind me of my avatar and who I'm working with. And as you know, as a network marketing leader, you are not herding little kittens. You are herding big cats, people who have independence and a mind of their own. And when you say go here, they want to go down, as one of my coaches said to me yesterday. So it's not even going in the opposite direction. It's going in an entirely different way. And so how do you bring them together? And oftentimes, even as network marketing leaders, even though that title is there, we still don't necessarily see ourselves as leaders. It's a word that is hugely maligned in the English language, and that people actually put up crosses to say, no, don't call me that. Call me anything else, but don't call me a leader. And so what I'm offering you is an assessment to look at where you are a leader in probably some unexpected places in your everyday life. You actually are a leader, and to really own that, to step into it, step up to it, step out in it, and own it, and really take your team to the next level. So and also you get the first lesson in the first step of The Art of Herding Cats on defining leadership. And it's a great little download that will get you thinking about leadership and why you really are a leader and always have been. And it's just a question of getting you to step out and really shine. So if you go to my website, which is it's much longer than yours, www.dare2dream/herding-cats-2. You'll be able to, again, give me your information and we will send that out to you almost instantaneously. And I would love it if you would come back to me and tell me which numbers, which types of things in your everyday life you're doing that makes you a leader. So thank you, Sherry, so very much for sharing your expertise with us. And isn't she just delightful to be around? So again, the Leadership Stars program is usually done on the second Tuesday of the month. I know we're running a little late in the month, but it was because Sherry was going to be here and I wanted to make it a one-on-one live call. So check us out in the second Tuesday of the month at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And we'd love to have you here, and please comment and let us know that you're enjoying the program. Thank you and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.